We've reached a very special place in this season where I can talk about my childhood. For those that have been watching long enough, or even for those that haven't, my first handheld experience was with the Game Boy Advance. I have so many fond memories with the original and the SP, but in a few years it'd be overshadowed by another Nintendo portable system that not only had more than a single screen, and little did I know, was a slimmer version of what came before. It's the Nintendo DS Lite. I have to be honest, I cannot remember asking for it at the time. I would have been 7 or 8 when I got it, and I'm sure I knew nothing of it, but could I say I was better off when I received it? Absolutely. The Nintendo DS Lite was released on June 11th, 2006, as the lighter version of the original DS. This is my DS Lite that I grew up with, still able to shine with its white color. Might be a bit dirty and roughed up a little, but that's what happens when you age over time. I was a child back then too, so just keep that in mind. So you may have guessed, this was the first DS I had. I didn't have an original DS until much later. I don't have the one I have now to compare it with, but I'll still do it with a few pictures. The DS Lite is obviously smaller in height, but it's almost the same width, just slightly smaller by 0.6 inches. The DS Lite is also skinny in depth, adding to the light in its name, and apart from the obvious cosmetic changes, they're pretty much the same when it comes to playing games. The question now is, how would you play these DS games? With a big dual-screen GBA SP looking version, or with the version that has a more compact design? My vote is on the Lite, obviously, so let's get to seeing what it's all about. Up on top, we have the first screen where you primarily see all the action, and you got 2 speakers on either side where you'll hear all the action. They still hold up after all these years, but I just realized I have a tiny dent right here. Not sure how that happened. Below that is the bottom screen where all the touching happens, surrounded by the D-pad and ABXY buttons, all of which are soft to push but get the job done. You also have some mini start and select buttons that feel harder to press, but probably for the right reason. Don't want those buttons breaking, as they're arguably the most important in some scenarios. In between the dual screen display is the microphone where the unit folds into itself, and you got the light indicators on the right to show how your DS Lite was doing with power, charging, and if it was sleeping or connecting wirelessly. On the bottom we can find the volume adjuster, a headphone jack, and a slot for Game Boy Advance games. I've been able to keep the cover all this time. While this was great for someone like me to ease the transition over to playing more on my DS, to tell you the truth, I hardly played any GBA games on my DS Lite. I was just in the mindset of, if I'm gonna play Game Boy Advance, I might as well just do it on my SP. There isn't anything to say about the sides apart from finding the power switch on the right, so we'll move right along to the back, where you'll find a multitude of information and find 2 important things of interest. First, you'll find the stylus. Obviously, this isn't the right color for my white DS Lite. I lost my colored stylus at some point in my youth, then I somehow wound up with my sister stylus, which is pink for those colorblinded folks. You can also access the battery if you need to. It's a lithium-ion battery that on the DS Lite could last from 15 to 19 hours on a 3-hour charge, which is a definite improvement on the original DS. But after so much usage, it could start dropping, so it's nice that you could replace it yourself until that was taken away with other models. One unique thing about my DS Lite is that it has this transparent casing around most of the outside. No idea if it's unique to the Lite or if it was some accessory my parents added to it, but it has kept the outside new, fresh, and clean at the very least. Now on top we can find the L and R buttons, the AC adapter jack, the holes you can put a wrist strap on, and the DS cartridge slot. I've been wanting to get back to playing my childhood games for so long, and now we shall get back to it. The DS Lite can play all original DS games, which were over 150 by the time it was released, but the library would only grow in the years that followed with some great, mediocre, and even some terrible titles. I fortunately didn't experience many bad games. There were a couple duds for sure, but what I remember the most from that period was New Super Mario Bros., Brain Age, Nintendogs, Animal Crossing, Lego Star Wars 2, and Spider-Man 3. Of course, there were a few others, but those would come later down the line when the DS became intelligent, or perhaps when I got into collecting, as I'm still finding some fun games like Super Princess Peach and WarioWare Touched. And it all came at me with a lighter package. The Nintendo DS Lite, from my experience, was a fun handheld that did so much for being a tad bit smaller. Better overall design with great games to play, with more coming out over the years with another redesign just around the corner. But if you so happen to find the lighter model DS out there, in good condition and good price, I'd say it'd be the DS to get if you want to skip over the little bulk or intelligent editions that might not interest you. So this way you can fully enjoy your dual screen games in arguably the best compact way. It's the Nintendo DS Lite. This wasn't my only system from childhood. While a good portion of it was spent on portable handhelds, another half was spent on one particular Nintendo console, which will close off Season 2 of console reviews, in which Nintendo sparked a revolution by means of motion controls and 3 simple letters. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video. And if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.